And she was just mad, and rightfully so, because I would be pissed too. Hey y'all, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. Alright y'all, so first things first, the nails. Ooh, that focused quickly. But yeah, here we go. And y'all know what vibes we coming with. It's October, so spooky, but make it pink because duh. I mean, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If you're new here and you are not privy to the information, my mother did pass away in 2020 from breast cancer. And so we rep her always. That is why she sits here with me in my necklace all the time. And in October, we wear pink. So yeah, that's that. Y'all, I always feel like there was more that I was supposed to tell y'all in the intro, but I always forget what I was supposed to tell y'all aside from showing y'all my nails, because I really do feel like I had something else to say. But since I can't remember, we just gonna go ahead and move on. But I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna remember after the video is over, because that's always what happens. I always remember when the video is over. But like I said, since I can't remember, let's just go ahead and hop right into today's case. And today we're gonna be talking about Amarah Jerica Banks, who was born on March 14th, 1993. And I do believe that she was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If not born there, then she moved there shortly after her birth. But she was born to her parents, Harry Smith and Jill Lipscomb, and for the first 4 years of her life, I really don't know what was going on there. But I do know that at 5 years old, she was adopted by a couple named Acklin and Valeria Banks. But even though she was adopted by Acklin and Valeria, it would appear as though Amarah was able to stay in contact with her birth family. And for the rest of this video, I'm gonna call Amarah Jerica because that's what she mostly went by. So yeah, Jerica was described as a smart, talented, very loving person, and she was able to express her talented side at Milwaukee High School of the Arts, where obviously she attended high school and became a proficient violin player and was an honor student. And I don't know if it was before or after high school, but at some point Jerica worked at Summerfest. And if you don't know what Summerfest is, it's a really big music festival that happens in Milwaukee in the summertime, obviously Summerfest. And people can get seasonal jobs at Summerfest, but they can work at Summerfest grounds throughout the year, because the place in which the music festival is held, the grounds where the music festival is held at, it has other events throughout the year. And so like I said, I don't know if she started working there before high school and just was doing that in the summertime, or if she started working there after school and it was her job throughout the year. I'm not 100% sure, but it is at Summerfest where she met a man named Arzell Ivory. And I'm not sure if the relationship between Arzell and Jerica was like just a sexual relationship, a friends with benefits. They was in a like serious relationship the first go round. But whatever the case was, Arzell and Jerica will welcome their first child on August 3rd of 2014. It was a baby girl, and they named her Zaniyah Rose Ivory. Now, like I said, I don't know the dynamic of these two's relationship, but I would assume that it was an on and off relationship, because on October 7th, 2015, Jerica and a man named Cortez will welcome a child together. It was another little girl who Jerica named Kamaria Banks. And Jerica was a very loving, caring, active mother to her children. She absolutely loved her kids. So little Zaniyah was described as being a very spoiled child. And she was also very talented, just like her mother. And if I'm not mistaken, she was a granddaddy's baby. She loved being with her granddad, Acklin. She was his little shadow. Okay, and then Kamaria was the little sass queen, okay? And unlike her sister Zaniyah, Kamaria was grandma's baby. She was her grandma's little shadow. But both of those little girls were the apples of Jerica's eye. She lived for her kids. And to support herself and her kids, Jerica would end up getting a job at Frederick Hospital. And at some point, she would end up rekindling the relationship that she had with Arzell. Like I said, that's why I assumed that it was on and off, because it seemed like it was on and off. But anyways, in early of 2018, Jerica and Arzell welcomed their second baby together. This time it was a little boy whose name was Arzell Ivory Jr. And baby Arzell was born with a couple of respiratory issues. He had severe asthma and required a little bit extra attention because of this. But nonetheless, baby Arzell was absolutely adored by not only Jerica and her parents, but by his two older sisters as well. They absolutely loved to love on baby Arzell. They were so happy to be big sisters. They pretty much stayed in baby Arzell's face. But like I said, he was born with some serious respiratory issues. And so Jerica was always mindful of this. So moving forward to late 2019, early 2020, I'm not sure if Jerica and Arzell were in a relationship or not, but they wasn't living together. But when Arzell's house caught on fire and was pretty much destroyed, Jerica let him move in with her and the kids. And he was living there with her and the kids when the events of today's case kind of got set into motion. So it's January 24th, 2020. And for the past couple of days, baby Arzell had been sick with a cold, which was exacerbating some of his asthma symptoms. So he was wheezing and coughing along with being a baby. It was a lot. And so because of this, Jerica was keeping an even closer eye on him than she normally would. But, she still had to go to work. She still had to maintain a living. And so when she would leave baby Arzell at home with his dad, she would make sure she told him, like, pay attention to his breathing. If anything gets worse, take him to the hospital. He might need a breathing treatment. Just gave him the rundown as mothers usually do, even if we talking to the daddy. Us mothers want to always make sure our kids are good no matter who they with, even if we know that they're gonna be good with their dad. So Jerica goes off to work and Arzell does what he normally does when she goes to work and he has the kids. He gets the girls ready, he takes them to school, and then he takes baby Arzell to daycare so that he can head off to work. But on this particular day, the daycare actually turned Arzell away and told him that baby Arzell was too sick to come to the daycare that day. And this was at around 9 o'clock in the morning. And so Arzell ended up calling out of work and decided to run a couple of errands instead. So he takes baby Arzell with him to run a couple errands before they return back home. Once they get back home, Arzell tries to feed the baby, but he won't eat. He tries to give him medicine. He won't take it. And he pretty much tried to get baby Arzell to rest just because his body's so little. He just going through a lot. And, a lot of the time, sometimes the body just needs to rest. But baby Arzell kept coming in and out of sleep. He was very uncomfortable. But eventually he did end up going to sleep, but had to be woken up at around 3 o'clock so that Arzell could go get the girls from school. And on their way to school, baby Arzell is he's having difficulty breathing. He's wheezing, he's kind of gasping for air. It just seemed like he couldn't get enough air. And it was around 3:30 when Arzell arrived at the school to pick up the girls. And when he got there, the principal noticed that baby Arzell looked like he was in bad shape. And the principal told Arzell that he should probably get baby Arzell to a hospital because he was not looking good. And so Arzell agreed and he said that he would take baby Arzell to the hospital. But before he headed to the hospital, Arzell took himself, the girls, and baby Arzell to a couple of stores to grab some snacks. And after they grabbed the snacks, it was then that they headed to the hospital. And once they got to the hospital, Jerica was called. And I don't know if Jerica was called by Arzell or if the nursing staff or the hospital staff called Jerica, but she was called and she left work immediately, obviously, because her baby is now in the hospital. But unfortunately, by the time Jerica made it to the hospital, her son had already passed away. The nursing staff and the doctors said that they did everything that they could, but by the time he got to the hospital, it was just too late. And they ended up determining that the cause of death was viral bronchitis and bronchiolitis. Baby Arzell was just 3 months shy of his 2nd birthday. And as you can imagine, Jerica, Arzell, and the rest of the family were absolutely devastated by this loss. Like, this tiny little life that barely got to begin is now gone. Baby Arzell was laid to rest on February 7th, 2020. And after the funeral, Jerica didn't want to go home. She wanted to spend time around people who she knew loved and cared about her, people who would be able to comfort her as much as possible during this time. And so she ended up just hanging out with her family after the service well into the next morning. And it was while she was hanging out with her family that she expressed anger towards Arzell because she felt like pretty much that he let her baby die. He could have and should have taken him to the hospital way before it got to the point where he was unable to be revived. And she was just mad, and rightfully so, because I would be fucking pissed too. And it really didn't help that Arzell went to work right after the funeral. It almost felt like he didn't even care. And so Jerica ended up staying out most of the night, and her and the girls was dropped off by her sister a little bit after midnight on the 8th. But before Jerica and the girls got out of the car, or maybe even earlier in that day, Jerica and her sister had made plans to do brunch the next day. So they say they I love yous and I'll see you tomorrows, and then Jerica and the girls go inside. But when the next day rolls around and Jerica's not answering her phone, her sister kind of become worried because she knew that they were supposed to have brunch the next day. They confirmed it before Jerica got out of the car, and Jerica she wouldn't miss that. And so her sister started to become a little worried when she called other people in the family to see if they had spoken to Jerica after last night, but they had not. Now, one could say, why would they become worried right off the bat? Because she did just lose her son. She did just bury him the previous day, and maybe she just don't want to be bothered with nobody. But once again, I always say it, when people say it's out of their family member's character to do something, please believe them, because they're the people who know this person the most. So if they say that it was out of character for Jerica to not have responded to them, even shot them a text like, hey, I don't feel like talking, that's what it was. So they were worried right away. And they ended up filing a missing persons report on not only Jerica, but on Zanaya and Kamaria as well, because they're usually with their mother. And nobody has seen neither one of them. Now, initially, the police did not classify this as a critically missing persons case because Jerica's grown and she could have taken herself and her children willingly. They was probably thinking the same thing that I just said. Maybe she just don't want to be bothered with nobody. She did just bury her son the previous day. I mean, and so they really wasn't putting too much of an effort behind trying to find Jerica and her girls. But they did want to cover all their bases, and so they got in contact with Arzel, who was now in Memphis with his dad. And Arzel said that he hadn't seen Jerica since the night of the funeral. He said that they did get into a fight after the funeral, but he hadn't seen Jerica or the girls since. And he also agreed to meet with them when he got back to Milwaukee, which would be in about a week. So with the information that Arzel hadn't seen Jerica or the girls either, 4 days after the initial missing persons report was filed, police ended up notifying the media of Jerica and her girls' disappearances. And once the media was notified and it was on local news stations, all of Milwaukee was praying for Jerica and her girls' safe return. I remember when this case happened, it was all up and down my timeline. I don't know if y'all know or not. I probably say it a lot, but I'm from Milwaukee. And so I see a lot of the news cases and a lot of the stories from Milwaukee on my Facebook timeline. When I tell you everybody in the city was praying for this family and praying that Jerica and her girls were found safe, I mean everybody. Okay, myself included, because she just lost her son and now she's missing. Like, nah. Find her and these babies. But another week will go by with no new information and no contact from Jerica. And it was then, 2 weeks after the initial missing persons report was filed, that an Amber Alert was issued for Zanaya and Kamaria.
The search for Jerica Banks and her 2 young daughters led to an Amber Alert Saturday, a week after they disappeared.
And the police said that it took this long for an Amber Alert to be issued on the girls because up until this point in the case, they felt like the criteria wasn't met for an Amber Alert. And the criteria in Wisconsin for an Amber Alert is that the child must be 17 years of age or younger. The child must be in danger of serious bodily harm or death. And initiating agency must have enough description information about the child, the suspect, or the suspect vehicle to believe an immediate broadcast alert will help locate the child. So it pretty much seems like they felt like since Jerica and the girls was missing, that the girls wasn't in immediate danger because they was probably with their mama. That's what it sounds like to me. But the Amber Alert will be called off the very next day because the Milwaukee Police Department will end up getting a call from the Memphis Police Department saying that they had Arzel in custody because he confessed to his daddy that he did something bad and his daddy called the police and turned him in. So Arzel pretty much told his dad that him and Jerica had gotten into a fight and he ended up killing Jerica and that he killed the kids because he didn't want them to live in a world without their mom. But he also told his dad that he brought the kids in the world and he could take them out if he wanted to. So anyways, when Arzel talked to the Milwaukee Police Department, he told them this story and he said that he strangled Jerica and the kids and then he wrapped their bodies in an air mattress and he took them to his old apartment complex on 47th and Burleigh, put them in a garage and then set it on fire. And so with this information, the police do go to 47th and Burleigh and unfortunately they do find Jerica, Zanaya, and Kamaria inside of this garage, badly burned. And the saddest part is that they could make out pieces of the clothing that they was wearing, and they all still had on their rest in peace baby Arzel t-shirts from his funeral. And so on February 16th, 2020, the search was over. Jerica, age 26, Zanaya, age 5, and Kamaria, age 4, had all been found. And Arzel was immediately arrested by the Memphis Police Department, where he waited in jail for his extradition to Milwaukee. And there was a whole lot of outrage that had happened behind this case. And 2 police officers will actually end up being fired. So not only did it take them 14 days to issue an Amber Alert for the girls, but the police had actually been called on the night that Jerica and the girls were murdered. So it's around 1:51 a.m. on February 8th, and 911 gets a phone call from Jerica's neighbor. And this is the neighbor who shares a wall with Jerica. And she pretty much says that she hears a lady screaming. She's saying, no, don't kill me. I'm actually just going to play the clip for y'all right here so that y'all can hear what she has to say.
And I heard like some loud thumping on my wall, and I heard a lady screaming. So I jumped up and I hear her screaming, no, no, help me, help me. So I dialed 911.
The complaint goes on to say another witness saw Amarah Banks run through the parking lot to another apartment without shoes on and appeared to be bleeding from the mouth. Investigators say the witness told them they then saw Ivory drag Amarah back to the apartment.
Then I heard her screaming some more. And then the last thing she said was like, please don't kill me.
But despite what this neighbor was telling the dispatcher ended up classifying the call as a priority 2 call, which didn't require an immediate response. And so because of this, the 2 responding officers, the ones who was going to respond to the call, had ended up finishing up paperwork and downloading body cam footage before they responded to the call. And after they was done with their paperwork and downloading the body cam footage, they headed over to the apartment complex. And it only took them 5 minutes from the police station to get to the apartment complex. And once they got there, they sat outside and waited with their windows down just to see if they heard anything or saw anything, but they didn't, and so they left. But the problem was that they were sitting in front of the wrong fucking apartment. But yeah, so an internal investigation was conducted and the 2 officers did end up being fired, but then they ended up getting rehired and then they were suspended instead. But the 911 operator, if I'm not mistaken, she actually ended up resigning before the internal investigation was finished. So she quit. And so yeah, that was a whole thing. But now back to Arzel, because at this point he's still in Memphis waiting for his extradition. But when he did end up getting extradited back to Milwaukee, he ended up pleading guilty and was offered a plea deal. And in court during his sentencing, he offered this sorry ass apology that I don't really think nobody was buying. I mean, I'll let y'all be the judge of that. This is his apology.
I have heard what the prosecutor said about what I did. I have heard about how what I did affected the family and loved ones of the victims. I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything by what I say, but I am truly sorry and I regret everything I did. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, y'all, tell me what y'all think after seeing that clip of his apology. Do y'all believe what he's saying or no? But yeah, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole on July 16th, 2021, and he will spend the rest of his days in prison. But yeah, y'all, that concludes today's case. Thank you all so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Let's get it, ho. Damn it. Okay, I need somebody. Woo. Please. Please don't die. Please don't die. Like, look at the quality. Look at the quality. Please, come back. Susie! And now you won't focus? Dog. Thanks. But she was born to her parents, Harry Smith and Lisa Jill. Jerica and a man named Cortez will have a baby. And he took them to his old apartment complex